Never as easy as it sounds. I fear the things that I'll unbound whenever I cast into the past. I get stuck in there for days. It's a formidable place. A dark and dangerous situation. No amount of medication helps me with my preparation. I just gotta jump in with my hesitation and an eerie indication there might be some revelations that I don't deal with, and I'm getting scared. I don't
I will be I'll be on camera in a minute. I'm taking medication. So it's already like fully spring and mowing time, huh? Correct. It's a medicine that is best consumed orally as a vapor. I don't smoke inside, so dab rig has been a good investment. But don't want to influence the kids. I don't know this song. This one's good. This is one of my favorite artists for a super long time, and just zero traction whatsoever. Most of it's instrumental, but this new album has some, I guess, some vocals on it. As far as I know, it's just one dude. Let's pull up a different. Oh yeah, here we go. I love this piano part. A lot of it is very like lo-fi music to study to type stuff. But you know, I don't only listen to fucking technical metal. This is really good driving music. Like, I'm very much a vibes driver. So when it's a nice sunny day and you've got nice views, something like this, or like Kunzite, a lot of it, you know, instrumental. Port Blue, actually, the old Port Blue is like an ancient reference. That was Adam Young, who did Owl City. That was his, like, one of his earlier projects. It was Port Blue. And it's really pretty stuff, mostly instrumental. just kind of like this. Synth keys. But I really like the way he like creates his soundscapes. But I wanted to play this one. We're gonna not probably watch the official video because I think it might get us in trouble. I'm thinking this will be okay. There's a like Saw style synth that comes in that is one of my favorite. I don't know. The way it hits like really tickles my brain right. I don't know how to explain it. Snow Strippers is kind of like, they're a lot like Breathe Carolina, like early Breathe Carolina, to be honest. Yeah, it's just something about the specific way they get it tuned for like maximum impact. Bethany and I went to see Yellow Claw like a month ago, and they played. Oh, okay. Now this one I probably will not be able. Yeah, I mean, I think about Goat. There are a lot of Polyphia songs that do that for me. Especially because of the way they like play with syncopation. The drums too. Clayton Ashelman is a monstrous drummer. Supposedly there's a new album in the works, which I'm excited about. I don't know, man. Sometimes I just feel it in my bones. This will probably get blocked. So I don't know if I can actually play it. But yeah, I really like this one. Snow Strippers they're kind of like they're almost like a meme band. This song is called "So What If I'm a Freak." Okay, well, this is what I want. I don't know why I pulled that up. See, I think this is gonna get struck, but we will see. But this, like, organs, I'm just watching to see if my stream gets flagged. But Snow Strippers is kind of a meme group, I think. Very, like, self-aware. But that doesn't mean they don't make interesting and fun music. Did I not put any water in here? God damn it.
Y'all got a problem, my taste, bitch. Y'all can't talk about basic. We might be more Power Ranger. My niggas also dangerous. Y'all niggas talk outrageous. Don't matrix. Got that
I really like Talk Outrageous.
gas lyrics, can't hear
That's
it
a
no
great
more. Stand to the
that's a
man,
great
can't feel it
phrase.
no more. Gas on the gram, don't feel it no more. You were driving a minute but can't steer it no more. Riding a wave but now you're chilling on shore. What's the use of being rich when your inside's poor? Diamonds exist, but you don't wanna see more. No, you wanna see more, but you wanna see soar. Life done slowed you down, your body is acting up, your mind is out of bounds. It's telling you pack it up. You shackle by thoughts and memories that's adding up. Like threesomes overseas, bitches without a bond. You feel alive like you can't have enough. You probably feel paralyzed if you ain't had a buck. You still feel paralyzed, the bucks attract lust. Friends just having kids and shit ain't adding up. What's the use of having a world with no love? What's the use of having a light with no plug? What's the use of ingredients with no sauce? What's the use of the physical with no source? We lit up, lit up, lit up, lit up. We lit up, lit up, lit up, lit up. We lit up, lit up, lit up, lit up. Y'all gotta follow my taste, bitch. Y'all can't talk about basic. We mighty more Power Ranger. My niggas also dangerous. Y'all niggas talk outrageous. Don't get caught in the matrix. Got that touch my savior. Keep it that touch with my haters.
Well, shout out to Nightmare for not flagging that. Yeah, I like that. I like that song a lot. I have no context, I guess, for who I think is big. Like, because I feel like, I mean, probably, you could probably get banned, but mostly they're like, if you keep using somebody else's audio in the stream, we will basically cut the stream off, or we'll shadow ban your, right, people won't be able to find it. So it doesn't really matter. Like, I don't monetize, obviously. I'm not trying to make money on my stream or on the music that I am listening to. But it's sometimes surprising, the artists that are like big enough or have enough, I don't know, are paying for the right subscription or are on the right label to have their stuff like automatically get flagged within seconds. I think Tucker Carlson is like that, where it's like within 2 or 3 seconds, there will be a notification that you are like infringing. But to me, Nightmare, I mean, he's got A$AP Ferg on this track. Like, even if you don't listen to Nightmare specifically, there are a lot of people who like A$AP Ferg. So I'm kind of surprised that, one, that this doesn't have more. This has 750 likes. This is the official fucking track on his page. And like, I think this dude is massive, but I guess he isn't. Like, I think I'm extremely basic for listening to Polyphia. Right? Like, Polyphia to me is just like almost like pop music. Like, of course, everybody listens to Polyphia because it's really easy to listen to. And it's really good. But just because I think somebody is famous, they're not famous. This has been out for a year and it's got 150,000 views on the video, like on the music video. But this Major Lazer song that I don't know has 52 million views. God, I remember Major Lazer. Yeah, it's just like, it's just surprising. And it's frustrating. I'm not, back in the day, I knew a bunch of people who were professional Twitch, like, who were partners, right? Back in the early days of like 1,000 partners, 1,500 partners. And they were already getting burned out in 2018. And talking about how all of the way music is getting, like, a whole industry came up making copyright-free music for streaming because you couldn't stream with just the music that you had anymore. And like, it's not the worst thing to ever happen, but it feels like we're getting nickel and dimed a lot more, right? And I think this is what people are frustrated with Disney World, which is one of, like, full disclosure, I'm not a Disney adult, but I love Disney World. It's one of my favorite, like, experiences because they create immersion in a way that other theme parks just don't. I would say Universal is close. But like Disney does, I wasn't allowed, famously, among people who know me, I wasn't allowed to watch Disney movies like in the 90s, and I still haven't seen Mulan. No, I've seen Mulan. I haven't seen Pocahontas or The Little Mermaid or The Lion King or Beauty and the Beast. Like, my parents were caught up in the anti-Disney backlash of the 90s. My parents have been caught up in several backlashes. But anyway, so because of that, there were like a few years where we didn't do Disney. But I did grow up with the old Winnie the Pooh movies and like Robin Hood, and there were a few others. Some of the older Disney stuff. So for me, that's the part of the park that is specifically interesting to me. Like the Winnie the Pooh ride is a kid's ride, but it is also very related to my childhood specifically. So I like that ride for that reason. And they just do a better job of hiding the seams, right? And they are just getting, I don't know what the economics really are, right? So much money is fake, and all money is fake if you want to go there specifically, but more generally, how much like money that Disney has is real money, and how much of it is assets, how much of it is like investments, properties, how much stuff is depreciating. Like, there are a lot of questions you can ask about how much money they actually are able to leverage, what they can actually do. Because even though they're making huge revenues, they also spend a lot. So maybe the problem is really that Disney is struggling financially more than it looks like they are. And that's why they're fucking everybody at the parks. But I think it probably is more just likely that they figured out, hey, even if we lose 5% of our customer base because we start like charging for Fast Pass, right? Oh no, we implemented a thing that was too popular and people overused it. So now we're going to paywall it. It happens every time. But I think that's what it is. And it's just like, it feels like you're getting fucked. It feels like they know they can charge you for stuff and they're doing it, even though they didn't have to charge you for it. And it's like giving away goodwill. There is a theme park in Indiana, which I heartily endorse, despite the fact that it is very Christian. It's called Santa Claus. It's called Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana. And it's like $45 maybe. I don't know what admission is now. But it has a world-class water park. It has some of the best wooden roller coasters in the country, like according to roller coaster enthusiast clubs. Their water park is included with admission. So as long as it's open, you can go just with park admission. They have free sunscreen. And they have free soft drinks all day. There are just kiosks all over the park, and you can get a soft drink. You can get Gatorade, you can get Pepsi products, you can get like lemonade or something, right? They have a couple of sort of hydrating type drinks, but I mean, it's just like at a Taco Bell. And it's free. And they could charge $4 for a cup, and they could make a lot more money. But they would lose a lot of customers, and they would lose a lot of goodwill. The Costco hot dog is the same thing. They're losing money on that hot dog. Probably not as much as, people think, but probably more now than they were a fucking year ago. But it is such a good piece of marketing that people will tell other people about. They're paying you for the privilege to pay you again for a hot dog. And then they're marketing to other people about how great that deal is. You're paying yearly to go in there, although you can just buy the hot dog without a membership, which is a nice touch. But like, that's a huge marketing tool, and it's free marketing, and it's goodwill towards your brand. And I don't know why you would give it up. And it doesn't make sense to me why Disney would embrace the nickel and diming. I don't know. It's all bad when everything depends on like revenue growth, infinite growth. You have to find new ways to squeeze money out of people every year because your investors, it's so fucking crazy that it doesn't matter if you, like, even if you beat earnings, your stock might drop. And if you miss earnings, it might still go up. There are some limited cases where, you have a really good explanation and justification for why what you're doing is going to work. And there was COVID, for example. You might miss earnings because of COVID. That's totally fair. That's a reasonable thing as an investor to look at and go, I believe in the product still. The demand is there. The customer base. But everybody got hurt during COVID, so we're not so worried about the earnings. But generally, if you are missing earnings, you should be valued less. But if you don't beat earnings by enough, sometimes you get punished. And it's I don't know, it's strange. It's like perverse. But the entire economy is built on fraud, and at some point there will be a crash, and it's not going to be pleasant. The war with Iran is not going to help that, I don't believe. So I am very, very concerned. I think about NVIDIA a lot, right? And I don't know if you listen to Ed Zitron, the Ed Report. I don't remember what his podcast is called. Better Offline. I don't know if you listen to Ed Zitron. I am pretty much an AI doomer, a skeptic. Like, I am opposed to it ethically, but also I don't think that the market is accurately reflecting things. NVIDIA by itself is worth like maybe maybe $4 trillion, maybe $3 trillion. That's a huge chunk of the market is NVIDIA, right? They had a 10-for-1 stock split, and their stock is still over $220 a share right now. Well, I don't know what it is today. $217. It's down on the day, $2. So what that means is 2 years ago, you would have been paying $2,000, almost $2,200 for a share of NVIDIA, right? So 10-for-1 stock split. The stock price looks lower. There's more of it, and more people are able to get in. Because when your stock price is too high, you start locking people out. Like, well, I can't buy a share of that. If Apple's stock is $12,000 a share, I'll never have one. So we split and we split and we split so that the shares remain affordable for like retail investors and more serious investors who have decent money to put into the market. But NVIDIA is such a huge... If NVIDIA halves, right? If their stock share drops by $50 or 50%, they were never worth more than $75 a share until 2020 or 2021. They went from $75 to $100 a share maximum to the equivalent of $2,200 a share. And that's going to cause a problem if people start pulling back and investments start not happening and they can't sell the next round of chips. Like, there are so many... It's kind of like the housing market because it's such a good investment that everybody's invested in it. And like pension funds, and because it's not so much that the pension fund is investing directly in NVIDIA, although I would be surprised if they weren't. But the investment funds are investing in VOO or other index funds, which are, weighted and have different like appetites for risk. So like that. They're all in NVIDIA because it's free money. But if NVIDIA goes to be in trouble, there is going to be a massive wipeout, right? If they wipe out like $1.5 trillion. It's just gone. Not entirely true. Obviously, that money will get funneled elsewhere. But if they go from being $2,200 a share to $1,100 a share, which is still 10 times what they were worth 5 years ago, then you lose $1 trillion to $2 trillion. It's fucking crazy. And I am confident that will happen. Because, again, I think 10x is probably still too high for what they do. Right? Because I don't think AI is going to be... I don't think it's going to happen the way people think it's going to happen and are telling us it has to happen. It is funny how many people tell you that AI has to happen, have a vested interest in AI happening. I'm sure those two things are not related because they would just tell me the truth, even if it wasn't going to make them more money or more powerful. Which I'm glad I know that, right? I'm glad I can trust these people. Because otherwise, it would feel like they might be telling me a lie so that they can make money. And I would hate to think that. All right. Anyway, I think that there will be a good opportunity to buy houses in a few years. That's what I'm banking on. I think a lot of people are over leveraged. And a lot of people are going to get fucked. And I think that a lot of, for example, Airbnb owners, I think they're going to have to sell. It is the way the market works. I'm being insensitive because I'm a poor person. But also, I'm being insensitive because it's capitalism. Hey, if you take a bunch of risk, If you go out and take on a bunch of loans because you're trying to start a business or you're trying to make extra money, I've seen some stories about the Airbnb owners who are really upset about the World Cup. So far, it doesn't seem like there's going to be the wave of tourism that people were thinking. And these people are trying to make more money off their Airbnbs, so they're fixing them up and they're trying to charge more money. And now they may not have anybody to charge. That is your problem. And maybe you should read the Bible about being greedy. But as a result of that, I think there will be a lot of distressed assets. I think that there will be a lot of defaulting on second or third property mortgages, which means there might be some stuff on the market for a reasonable price. That would be nice for us because we would like to buy a house here. But I think the median home price is in the $600,000 range. So that's not currently on the cards. In the cards. On the books. All right. All of these look terrible. I don't want to watch Trent talk to an influencer. You know, that's one of my least favorite ideas. I think this one could be interesting. This one could be interesting. I think this one's going to be interesting because this is about like people who swear at him, which is something that I do. Oh man, we got that real tight cut. He must have just gone to the barber. Listen, we've all been there. We've all had bad haircuts. Trent, he looks very serious.
Last month, I replied to Andrew Wilson's criticisms of me that he made on the Patrick Bet-Davidson.
Oh, Paul Bet-Davidson. This guy is the fucking worst. I mean, Trent is a bummer because he's dumb and bigoted in many ways. But Andrew Wilson is a fucking scumbag. And just, like, one of the most infuriating people to hear speak that I can even think about. He's up there with, like, what's his name? The guy who went to Poland and realized he was a Nazi, Stefan Molyneux. He's like that. He's so fucking rude to women, specifically, and about women, and about everybody else that's not a straight, I assume, white male. But the way he talks to women, he should be punched. Somebody should punch him. Oh my God. Because it's not like, it is far beyond even being like biblically misogynistic, right? It is just infuriating. Like Andrew Wilson, also Andrew Tate. They kind of have the same opinion of women. And I don't understand wanting to hear that or wanting to say it. And it appeals to exactly the sort of people that are 15 years old and can't get a girlfriend, which is the plight of almost every 15-year-old. So, but yeah, he is so fucking infuriating to listen to.
Good show. And the responses from him and some of the other people I criticized in that episode ranged from the unusual to the unhinged. So in today's episode, I'm going to go through those responses and restate why I consider this issue so important and not just something we can agree to disagree about.
Trent is very much, it's okay to rule over women biblically, but you can't be rude about it.
All right, so to give you a little context, Andrew Wilson said I and Lila Rose belong to a group he calls Sewing Circle Christians, who care more about...
Do you know who Lila Rose is? I don't know who Lila Rose is. I don't know if she's a Catholic influencer or a Protestant one.
Appeasing liberals by criticizing Christians who swear, for example, instead of uniting with those Christians to combat degenerates. But
I will be honest. The last thing I would criticize about this guy is his swearing. I think tone policing is really stupid, but also, what was that verse about how you clean the outside of the cup and dish, but the inside is filthy? You whitewash the outside of the tomb, but the inside is full of dead men's bones. Like, if your problem is with the exterior, rather than like the content, that you have the wrong priorities.
Never see him surrounded with a panel of like the worst degenerates on earth debating all of their worldviews simultaneously, but they have tons of criticisms for people who do.
But that's not my position. As I made clear in my response to Andrew, I'm all in favor of doing whatever it takes to combat error and evil, except for using sinful methods like verbally abusing people. And to make sure I didn't misunderstand Andrew, I sent him the script for my episode ahead of time.
He replied with just an image of himself giving me the middle finger. So this is why I respect Trent to a degree, because he does seem to take this stuff. He's a bit of a debate pervert, but he does seem to take this stuff seriously, that if he's going to make a public criticism of somebody or a public response to something somebody said about him, that he will let them know what he's going to say so they can tell him if he is being fair or if he's mischaracterizing them. And I think that's respectable. I think what he has to say often is not respectable. But that's a stand-up thing to do, to not drop a surprise on anybody.
And I incorporated almost all his replies into the final episode. So I was baffled when I saw him post on X afterwards that he considered my response fundamentally dishonest. However, Andrew's response paled in comparison to others.
That is bullshit.
In one part of my episode, I criticized Dyer for calling Talbert Swan Tilda Swinton. He wasn't being abusive, but it is annoying and silly for someone who wants to publicly defend the Christian faith on a large platform.
He was writing that in the car, right? That's a pre-planned joke right there. Because I've seen him talk. He's not that clever. That joke wasn't that clever, but he was ready whenever he got the chance. I'm gonna fucking burn this dude. I'm gonna call him Tilda Swinton. I don't even know how that's a burn. Does it just mean he's weird? Has like an off-putting delivery? I don't know what it means. I think it's just that it's TS. Call him T.S. Eliot.
But then Dyer said on X, Trent Horn virtue signals over me calling a fake black activist bishop a fake bishop. But I didn't say that. This is either a lie or an ignorant falsehood. So I told Jay, I accurately pointed out your embarrassing behavior, which in this case was calling Talbert Swan Tilda Swinton.
This is such embarrassing content. This is... I understand that, like, when you are a Christian, this stuff feels important and is even biblical. A lot of the stuff is biblical, right? You are supposed to confront the brother, and then you take it to the elders, and then you publicize it, right? If it still isn't resolved. Before you make a sacrifice, go and resolve your conflict with your brother. That verse doesn't get preached a whole lot. You know, not to derail myself, but you don't hear a lot of sermons taught about how you need to reconcile with your brother before you bring a gift to God. You know, you hear a lot about how you can't be gay or let women lead worship. They have to submit. I got a response from Corey talking about a video that I did watching one of his pieces, and he was telling me how the Bible is a really feminist book because you have like Paul saying that women should be allowed to learn, and you have Esther and Ruth, and this is my contribution, there are women in the lineage of Jesus, right? That's unusual. But we don't talk about the stuff that is not so woke and progressive. I mean, does it count? Is it in the Bible? Does it count? Women are supposed to submit to their husbands. Their husbands are supposed to love their wives. You love your wife like Christ loves the church. But Christ is not submitting to the church. The church is submitting to Christ. You're not supposed to be mean to your wife, but she is your inferior. That's what that means. It's clear throughout most of Paul's or pseudo-Paul's writings, the stuff that the early church adopted. It's like, women, shut up. And that's the New Testament. The Old Testament, women were literally property. Even in the New Testament, they were literally property, but I don't know exactly when the shift happened and your wife was not also like a down payment to her dad. But that was still going on. And I don't think that's particularly feminist for that to just be the system. I don't know. I one of these days I would like to actually have a conversation. We've chatted over Messenger. But I don't want to have a debate with him because that's not productive. And he is a debate pervert. Like, he is. He is like an apologist who went to seminary and teaches apologists and is a lawyer, right? So he's a professional arguer, and I don't want to do points-based arguing. I want to have like a dialogue, because I have genuine questions that I feel pretty comfortable that I have answered, but I am open to somebody making an argument that convinces me that I'm wrong. Right? I used to be a Christian, and then I found out that there are good reasons not to be. So I am convincible. But there are just issues that people really cannot explain if you know anything. And I am not that bothered by that fact. I'm pretty comfortable in my agnosticism, but I am happy to have honest responses to my honest questions, not sarcastic, not snarky, right? Just like, how do you explain this? And how do you square it with anything else? Right? if I can get a good response to that does not rely on like you have to believe that God is real and then it makes sense when it doesn't make sense. I need more than that. Does a son have to pay for the sins of his father? Depends on which verse you read. He both does and does not. So which one is it? Does he actually inherit the sins of his father or does he not? I don't know how you harmonize that. Anyway, this is embarrassing to be going back and forth like this on Twitter, on Elon Musk's child sex abuse platform.
I said nothing about the title of bishop. This is yet another example of you behaving like an overgrown 12-year-old instead of a mature...
Damn, you call him an overgrown 12-year-old.
Notice my reply is not verbal abuse. It's a fraternal correction rooted in objective facts about how Dyer was conducting himself. It's the same correction
You look
I
like-
gave Nick Fuentes regarding his abusive behavior.
Christ almighty. Speaking of, oh my God, the Nick Fuentes. One of the worst, and he's young.
Behavior towards my family.
Oh, my family. You attacked my family. You called my wife a bitch.
But like, I'm going to in a very limited context say it is funny to watch him call Trent a bitch. It is funny to see him do it because he doesn't care. He is like, there's nothing to respect about his principles, but he is serious about his shit. Like, he does not care about the consequences. I don't think he has interest in doing any direct action himself, but he is committed to this movement and to this propaganda. And he will do it no matter how much money he makes, no matter what he gets kicked off of, no matter how many times you ban him or kick him off your platform or he has to build a platform. It doesn't matter to him because he is an evangelist. Like, he is a white supremacist and he is an evangelist. And he does not care about the consequences to himself personally. Like, he just doesn't. So he says whatever he wants. And it's the same thing that people like about Trump. It's like, man, he says horrible stuff, but he just says it and he doesn't care. What needs to happen is there need to be some sort of actual consequences for this sort of behavior, and there aren't, as long as people like Tucker and Trent, but also other, popular content makers continue to have him on, Piers Morgan, etc.
Well, okay, you're a she's a you're a couple of you and your wife and your whole family are you got a whole family of whiny, lying. Is that better?
Oh, what would be better is if you submitted yourself to a spiritual director.
Damn! Got his ass. Submit to a spiritual director.
Maybe someone like Father Ripperger, so you can learn to behave in an actually Christ-like way and not like an overgrown 12-year-old screaming into his Xbox Live.
That lazy writing, Trent. That's the second time you've used overgrown 12-year-old. Lazy.
Headset. Once again, fraternal
You're like a grown 12-year-old. You're 5'4".
correction is not the same as abusive insults, and any mature person can see the difference. But after giving this kind of correction to Jay Dyer, he completely lost it. He immediately blocked me and went on a tirade of posts, including one where he simply says, "Hey Trent, F-word you."
Oh, God. This is so dorky. Fucking Mean Girls. There was a period of about 3 months at Harding when I was getting cyberbullied by a group of girls. And that was not pleasant. But also, I was like 20. Probably still too old for that. But it was, it was Twitter. Everybody in college was on Twitter. So, like, that sucked. I understand. It's not fun for people to talk shit about you on the internet. But you are like 45 years old. You guys gotta not do this shit. This is embarrassing. And the most macho posturing, the fucking worship of like fascist masculine aesthetic by these dork ass losers. I think so much of it is they want to have the power to push people around, and they assume that people who are like alphas, right, or chads or whatever, giga chads, hyper chads, hanging chads, whatever the fuck, I think they think that's what people like that do. But everybody but Ross in our friend group is above average in size. And I don't believe any of us relish pushing women around or forcing our opinions to be the one that is dominant. That doesn't seem to bear out generally. But that's what they want to do. They want to be able to tell people what to do. And maybe it's because they got bullied. Maybe it's because they are just deeply insecure. I don't know. But it sucks. And it's embarrassing. And it's really goofy to see people like Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson and Tim Pool talk about these masculine ideals and what real men are like, looking like they look and being who they are, professional, sitting in front of a microphone and talking people. That's what they do. Like, I am a trade unionist. I am 205 pounds. You're bigger than me. You're 6'4", 6'5", right? Ben's 6'6". Like, we are the sorts of big, imposing figures, regardless of how much time we spend in the gym, that these guys want to be or think are admirable. And that's not the value of being this sort of, because I'm a soy boy cuck leftist, right? But I weigh 2 times as much as Ben Shapiro. I respect my wife. And I don't think that that's embarrassing. Because why would I be embarrassed of the person I decided I wanted to be with? I don't know. I've never understood that. Particularly, I wouldn't date somebody that I wasn't happy to be dating. That I wouldn't date them. Right? I don't know. But it's ever present because Bethany teaches high schoolers. And so these people go around because they are on the fucking influencers. Andrew Wilson was on the Whatever podcast, which has, I guess, a pretty decent listener base. It's still in the schools, even if Andrew Tate isn't quite as popular as he once was. And it's just terrible.
And this kind of language isn't unusual for Jay, though I would ask him if the Orthodox monks on Mount Athos talk like he does.
Oh, not the monks on Athos. She's really burning him today. Burning his ass. Sorry, his butt. Burning his butt. Because we don't use profanity here.
Blunt. If a person consistently has this kind of anger in his heart, he will not go to heaven. What concerns me is that Dyer, Wilson, and other commenters like them cultivate this sinful attitude among their audiences.
I think that's something that you could argue with, because they would just say it's righteous anger. Jesus overturned the table of the moneylenders, didn't he? Also, I imagine they would make that anti-Semitic, but you could argue this. I would lean towards agreeing with Trent. I don't think that the Bible indicates you are supposed to be full of rage, right? The fruits of the Spirit are not rage, violence, and destruction, right? Love, joy, peace, all that gay stuff. Those are the fruits of the Spirit. So that is the argument I would make. But you can say, well, I am in the model of Jeremiah and Isaiah and these prophets who are preaching destruction. Right? There is, you can argue that. That's in the Bible too.
And that can lead to damnation for many of their followers if they fall down the rabbit hole of hatred and malice. What
That leads to
amazes
the
me
dark
about
side.
Everyone who says I'm tone policing is that when I watch their response videos, they just stare at their screen as I read off Bible verse after Bible verse that says Christians should not act like the way they act. And they
Look, I agree with him. I think if you're a Christian, you're to let no unwholesome speech come out of your lips, which more applies to the content of your speech, but I think could easily apply to the use of whatever society has determined is profane, right? Or vulgar, or crass. That's in the New Testament. You can easily make that point. I also am not a Christian, so I don't care. I don't value that. But we're talking about arguments between two nominally Christian people. So this is the debate that they're having.
have no response, or they use the craziest exegetical gymnastics to get around the text. Here's part of Jay's reaction. Dropping an F-bomb to insult somebody, like Andrew does.
Oh boy,
I will never be able to
Jay Dyer. I don't know who this dude is, but he looks like an asshole. I'm wearing sunglasses while streaming.
convince you of my worldview. Charlie, I just think honestly you're too f***ing stupid to understand them.
St. Paul repeatedly says
Jesus.
that overseers in the church must be gentle and not quarrelsome or violent, and that all Christians must put away anger, wrath, malice, slander, and
Hey.
foul talk from their mouth.
Hey, the man's got Bible verses. He's got Bible. You can't argue with the Bible verse. They're there. If you believe that stuff is true, you have to believe those. You have to agree with them.
Jesus said in Matthew 5:22, "Whoever insults his brother shall be liable to the council, and whoever says you fool shall be liable to the hell of fire." And 2 Timothy chapter 2 said,
Yeah, the text is not making a joke or making fun of people. The text is accuses his brother and thus liable to the council. So that's some Roman Catholic translation.
notice that
Trent may be about to make this same point, but I will notice that he didn't address any of the other verses. Listen, I have slacked off at work before. I have had to be in meetings or in interviews or talking to professors where I am definitely not prepared and I do not have a good response to any of the things that they might say to me about what I am or am not doing. So what you do is you wait for one thing you can seize on to try and derail the conversation and hope you can run out the clock. So I get it. I've done it. But yeah, those first three verses are not particularly ambiguous. He did not respond mentioning those three verses. He comes up with something for Matthew that is, I would call weak. But
Jay has to sit
but
in
that's-
silence
you gotta
as the
grab
verses
onto what you can.
Describe how Christians should act, because he consistently does not act like that. Second, Matthew 5:22 doesn't have the Greek word kategoreo, which means accuse, though that word does appear in Matthew 12:10 and Matthew 27:12.
breaking out the
An
Greek.
accuser is
Why is Matthew in Greek? Let's not talk about that. But it is interesting. I mean, it's good that he can break out the Greek. That's a useful thing to know when you're reading the Bible.
Mentioned in Matthew 5:25 in a different context and situation. But the Greek of Matthew 5:22, the verse I referenced, just
These people are, it's so frustrating. The like aesthetic Christian. Russell Brand is doing it. It's the get out of jail free card to be the most like violent lunatic and hateful asshole you want to be. And you can just say that you're a Christian. You could be a preacher. You know, James Wickstrom was a preacher, right? He was a pastor and a doctor, apparently. Like you have this cover of for Russell Brand, how dare you accuse me of being a sex criminal for many, many years? I am a Christian man. That is the entirety of his. Please get me an audience of right-wing Christians who will defend me as a Christian and will refuse to believe the things that are being said about me because I'm a Christian boy and I love the Lord. Like, that is the tactic. That is 100% the plan. And it sucks because it works on a lot of people. I don't know that it will keep him from facing legal consequences, but his reputation will probably never be completely destroyed in the way that it should be. But then you also have the people who want the aesthetic of religion so that they can have a wife who is also their slave and mother, and they can go kill non-Christians, which mostly happens to also be non-white people. But some people are not that specific about their hatred, right? They're just, they want to kill Muslims, or they want to kill people from Somalia, or communists. But for others, it is also very much tied to how you look. But that's tough to square with the majority of the New Testament. There's not that many verses you can find that back up your approach to just hating everybody.
This records Jesus saying, anyone who becomes angry or enraged with his brother or Gizamenos is liable to judgment. And anyone who says or calls, not accuse, but merely says his brother is a raka or fool, will be liable to the Sanhedrin and hell of fire. And this isn't some Catholic translation, because the same translation can be found in the Orthodox Study Bible. Another point my profane critics made was that I was inconsistent, because I thought Stephen Colbert's joke with Philip Zimbardo, where he said, "I teach Sunday school, mother effer," was okay. But most people recognize that Colbert was speaking comedically in an over-the-top way. He wasn't angrily calling Zimbardo an MFer, like how Dyer said F you to me.
This is so goofy. It's just, I used to police my language in this way, and for a long time, even through college, I really didn't swear. But this is so goofy.
With anger. Or other apologists online who I've seen use language like F you effing F slur. At worst,
that's a
all
bummer.
this critique proves is I was in.
Also, interesting that Trent is very anti-gay, but does say F slur instead of saying it. Because I don't know that he would have a problem with that word being used in a derogatory manner. Maybe he would prefer them to use the full word and not the shortened version.
Correct in where we should draw the line between.
True story. I got called that a bunch when I was playing middle school football when I was 10. And I didn't know what it meant. So I asked my mom, and we looked it up. And it meant a bundle of sticks. And that was all I knew. And so I was like, I don't understand. Like, that's not much of an insult to me because I don't really get it. Saved by my innocence. I was a very nice, polite church boy playing football at the middle school. So I think they thought I was weak. But, yeah, that was the first time I remember being, like, really directly bullied. But, like, ineffectively. I knew they were bullying me, but I didn't understand what I was supposed to be feeling from it, so it didn't really work. They bullied me in other ways that did work.
Colorful speech and sinful speech. Not that there is no line to be drawn, or that these profane critics don't gratuitously go over the line in their own abusive behavior. Another thing these critics do is ignore the Bible's commands to be gentle by saying they're allowed to imitate the prophets, apostles, and Christ himself, who
Hey, I said they were going to talk about being like the prophets, didn't I? I fucking called it. I F-wording called it.
they say allegedly mocked people. That's the claim Sam Shamoon made when he was on Bryce Crawford's podcast.
Who are these people?
But let me give you an analogy to show why this method doesn't work. Imagine I told my children, don't steal and destroy books from the library. Then one day they start stealing books because they saw me take a pornographic book and destroy it. I tell them, I appreciate you trying to be like me, but you aren't mature enough to know what should.
I had to check it thoroughly to make sure that it was pornographic. There, I had to really look with and use my discernment to find out if it was a pornographic material or not, because I would not want to destroy material that had artistic value. But I'm confident that it doesn't have artistic value, and I will have to wait until next month to find out if it starts to have artistic value.
And shouldn't be taken. So please.
Again, I'm not accusing Trent of anything specific here. Like, I think he is probably mostly doing what he says he does. There are people like that, right? Mike Pence, his dumbass, never be in a room with a woman that's not your wife. Like, that's a thing he believes sincerely and sticks to. And it's respectable, even if it seems goofy to us. And you know what? He doesn't get accused of having affairs. Like, you do kind of avoid that. Which is what the Bible says, right? Be above the appearance of wrongdoing. So that when people accuse you of things, it's laughable. Anyway, I think Trent is probably a guy who is not into porn. But that is also just what a guy who's into porn would say. So
Just follow my instruction and don't take any books from the library. In the same way, these critics end up justifying all kinds of vile, abusive behavior that holy people in Scripture would never permit. Frankly, I don't know how Scripture could be clearer on how Christians are supposed to engage others. So I'm going to read the verses yet again, and I challenge any of these profane critics to take each one, go through each of them, and explain why they don't apply to their own abusive rhetoric.
I am confident not one of them has done this.
Here we go. Colossians 3:8. Put
Oh,
them
let
all
me
away.
see.
Anger, wrath, malice, slander.
God, the
foul
comments
talk
used to
from
be
your mouth.
findable.
Ephesians 4:29. Let no evil talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is
This
good
guy
for
sucks.
as fits the occasion, that it may impart grace to those who hear. 2 Timothy 2:24-25. The Lord's servant must not be quarrelsome, but kindly to
What
everyone,
the fuck?
teacher, forbearing, correcting his opponents
Jesus
with gentleness.
Christ.
Luke 6:27-28. Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who abuse you. Romans 12:14.
Okay.
Bless
I'm
those
not
who curse you.
seeing.
Bless and do not curse them. 1 Peter 3:9. Do not return evil for evil or reviling for reviling, but on the contrary, bless, for to this you have been called, that you may obtain a blessing. And yet Christians like Sam Shamoon say that we should curse.
I'm not
people.
seeing that anybody has
Is there a time and place
mentioned
for the
responding
rules
to
on
him.
this?
No, you never have a time place though. What you do is what Paul did. When he saw Elimas wasn't interested, what did he do? He cursed them and ridiculed them. That's their treatment. You son of the devil. enemy of all that is righteousness. You will not stop perverting the ways of the Lord. He didn't even entertain him to talk. He cursed him. When I say curse, not like curse like F word. No, that's not what I'm talking about. He rebuked him and invoked God's judgment on him. That's what I mean by curse.
And yeah.
Not like, hey, your mother. You know, I'm not
Yeah.
saying. Okay.
Right.
Oh my
right.
God, who is
So,
this
When
fucking
you see those people,
Zoomer?
you are to rebuke them, chasten them, block them, and remove them.
I agree that if someone won't listen to you, you should probably kick the dust from your feet and move on. But the New Testament is clear that we should bless and not curse our enemies. And I'm astounded by the lengths my profane critics go to.
Here's the thing that some people ought to take into thought. Paul talking about how some plant, some water, and some reap the benefit. If you leave a bad taste in someone's mouth as a Christian, you are not leaving great ground for the next person to come along and water. Because you might not be the person that converts them. But if you are an asshole to them and you give them a bad feeling about Christians, you have not made it easy for the next person to nurture whatever good thoughts you were starting to put in their head.
In order to justify their immoral behavior. We've already seen Jay Dyer try to do that with the Sermon on the Mount. Watch how Sam Shamoon does that with 1 Peter 3:15.
I'm thinking of 1 Peter 3:15, right? It says, in your hearts honor Christ your
Oh, yeah.
Lord as holy.
This guy has 785,000 subscribers. What the fuck? We are cooked.
Always be prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks for the hope inside
But
of you.
notice the context. Whoever's asking you, give an apologetic, do so with gentleness and reverence. To whom? To those who ask you. What if they're not asking because they want to know? What if they're asking to bully you, intimidate you?
How do you know the only God knows the heart, Sam?
Blasphemy. I know what 1 Peter 3, but what's the context? Whoever asks you. Well, what if they're not asking you to learn? What if they're trying to bully you?
Does it say if they're asking you to learn? It also says give to everyone who asks. There's no context. Like there's no clarifying there. It just says give to all who ask. So what that means is if you don't give to everyone who asks, you are not following that. And that sounds a little bit hyperbolic, but elsewhere Jesus says stuff like, if someone asks for your cloak, give them your tunic also. Like, that's pretty... Here's the thing. That is extremely radical, and it is very impractical. But people would talk about you. If you want to talk about how Christians need to be the lights of the world and how you're supposed to be unusual in the way you have love for each other and these, you're supposed to stand out as Christians. One way to do that would be to be the cult of people that would give anybody anything. Let's take sex off the table. But their car, their house, their shoes, their food, because God will take care of me. See, man, like that would be an extremely good people would think you're really stupid. People would think you're really, really dumb. But it would be attractive. People would want to be a part of that sort of community. And many people would take advantage of it. Which is what you're supposed to allow for that to happen. You're supposed to rejoice when you are persecuted and when you are mistreated. So why do you want to be in a place where you have all the power and you get to tell people they can't be mean to you legally? What is that? How is that allowing you to suffer for the name of Christ? Look, hey, I don't want to suffer either. I don't want to be persecuted or hunted down. But the Bible says you're supposed to. You're supposed to want that. You're supposed to rejoice when that happens to you. When you get put in prison for preaching the word. Now, there are people who do that. There are people who get their asses put in jail for what they call preaching the word. But those are fringe cases relative to the majority of these kinds of people.
Intimidate you. What if they're trying to censor you? What if they're trying to mock you?
But that
What if they're trying to censor you? Censor legally? They're trying to make it illegal to say what you want to say?
That's exactly what the context of 1 Peter 3 addresses. How to remain holy even when evil people attack you. I'm going to read the passage at length so you can see the context is the exact opposite of Sam Shamoun's interpretation. Finally, all of you, have unity of spirit, sympathy, love of the brethren, a tender heart and a humble mind. Do not return evil for evil, or reviling for reviling, but on the contrary bless, for to this you have been called, that you may obtain a blessing. For, quoting Psalm 34, he that would love life and see good days, let him keep his tongue from evil, and his lips from speaking guile. Let him turn away from evil and do right. Let him seek peace and pursue it. For the eyes of the Lord are upon the righteous, and his ears are open to their prayer.
1 Peter, certainly not written by Peter. Just as a side note.
But the face of the Lord is against those that do evil. Now who is there to harm you, if you are zealous for what is right? So in other words, don't worry about repaying mockers with evil, because God will take care of that.
Hey, I was talking about that yesterday, about how convenient it is to think that just because these people who are doing mean, nasty, awful stuff aren't going to get their comeuppance here on earth, they will later in heaven when they are not in heaven. God is going to zap them. And that's a good feeling.
Instead, Peter goes on to say this. But even if you do suffer for righteousness' sake, you will be blessed. Have no fear of them, nor be troubled. But in your hearts, reverence Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to make a defense to anyone who calls you to account for the hope that is in you. Yet do it with gentleness and reverence, and keep your conscience clear, so that when you are abused, those who revile your good behavior in Christ may be put to shame. For it is better to suffer for doing right, if that should be God's will, than for doing wrong. So no, we aren't called to be kind only to those who gently ask us questions. We have to be kind even to people who mock us. Now, we can call out evil with blunt language, but we should strive to be kind when we do that. And when we do that, we actually put our critics to shame by exposing their bad behavior. But Sam Shamoun's approach, and others like him, it does the opposite. It puts themselves to shame through their bad behavior, and it makes their opponents look good in comparison. You can see this in Sam's correspondence with Ryan from needgod.net, showing what he said to Sam.
I think it'd be good to watch it and prayerfully reflect on it, because I want you to go to heaven, but I know that trusting in
Oh my God, this is so embarrassing. This is so embarrassing.
your obedience isn't going to get you there. Right? So I do have a heart for him. I'm praying for him that God saves him. That's my whole aim, is why I'm responding to him.
And making some sweet content. Because drama gets clicks.
How does he respond? He calls me, I know you are all full of your father the devil, and you think they're refuted. And then he talks about part 2. He says, stop hiding like a rabid dog. And he says, man up, go for a debate.
Do rabbit dogs hide?
He says, son of Satan. As for the cowardly, the faithless, he quotes Revelation 21, their part will be the lake of fire. You make your father Satan proud. So he's just being completely disrespectful. I've been trying to be kind, courteous to him, completely disrespectful.
Now, again, he thinks that that's fine for him to do, either because he genuinely believes it or because he has worked out a way to justify it, to like square his performative Christianity with his actual desires of just being an asshole.
Or in this reply Sam gave to a Protestant whose show I'm going to actually go on in a few months.
Sam sent 2 emails back. Spoken like a vile, demonized son of Satan.
Typical of you spiritual dogs.
And keep in mind, these are not reviling mockers. They're just Protestants who disagree or kindly ask questions and still get the rough treatment. Now, some people might say that this kind of behavior is the only way to get through to more aggressive critics, people like Muslim apologists who are more likely to resort to bombastic rhetoric. But that's not true, because Christian apologists like Inspiring Philosophy show how to be assertive with Muslim apologists without being abusive or petty. I also point
His facial hair is not very good, but he needs it because it's better than the alternative.
out in my previous episode that some of the examples abusive Christians say that they imitate from Scripture aren't actually in Scripture. Like the idea that Jesus whipped human beings when he cleansed the temple. As I pointed out in my previous episode, the grammar of that passage in the Gospel of John suggests that Jesus only used the whip he made to drive out the cattle, which would not have seriously hurt the cattle. It would have only caused them to leave the temple, and the money changers would have pursued them. Dyer, however, claimed that I, quote, spent several minutes arguing Jesus would never make a whip of cords, which is not true. But as you can see, saying untrue things is a bad habit for Jay Dyer.
This male feminist as an insult is seems to be gaining steam.
Sam Shamoon also had this to say.
If a Muslim had done this, I'd say, what a wicked, dishonest distortion of Scripture. But for the sake of charity, I have to be Christ-like to him. When John tells us he made a whip of cords and he drove them out, and cords, all he drove out from the temple. And having made a whip of cords, all he drove out from the temple, both sheep and oxen.
So, sheep and oxen. Seems like he's talking about animals.
Okay. Is now Trent saying that what he drove out are sheep and oxen? So Trent is saying that Jesus was being physically violent to sheep and oxen?
Yes, Jesus drove the animals out with an improvised whip, which would not have been violent toward them because of their thick hides and coats.
Okay, two things. One, that's what people said about black people too when you whipped them. But they didn't feel it as much because their skin was thicker. That's literally where thick-skinned comes from. Just historical note. But you also just wouldn't have to whip the animals necessarily. You could probably spook them.
This action got all the sheep and oxen to leave.
So are you telling me that John just wrote something superfluously? That Jesus made a whip of cords because he had nothing better to do, because he didn't do anything with the whip of cords? Because the text doesn't say he drove out anyone. That means it didn't even say he drove out animals if we go with this exegesis, right?
No, Sam, I said Jesus didn't whip anyone, not anything. I was careful to use the pronoun anyone.
Oh my God, you dorks. If you thought about what you were going to say, you could have been clearer. You could have clarified that the sheep and the oxen, because now we've got this back and forth.
To refer to the people in the temple, not the animals. And Sam then tries to refute my argument by merely surveying different translations of this passage, some of which agree with me. He doesn't deal with the original Greek in the passage or the two scholarly articles I cited in my video that make a compelling case for the adjective pantos, referring only to the sheep and the oxen.
You're dishonest and a hypocrite here, Trent. And I say this in love, brother. In love, I gotta call you out. Even Paul called Peter a hypocrite, so don't think you're better.
They did work it out, though. Paul and Peter did. Why? It's very much bless your heart, right? I'm about to be mean, but I'm going to pretend that I am not being mean by saying bless your heart.
Better than Peter. You and I are not good enough to carry Peter's or Paul's sandals. Stay in your lane, brother. Stay away from the issue of science. Stay away from evolution, creation. Stay away from Genesis. Stay away from these issues of how to treat people. Stay in your lane. Don't criticize us so we don't criticize you and put you in your place, brother.
No thanks. I'm going to keep calling out error, and if you don't like that, you're free to publicly disagree with me, and people can judge for themselves. But this pseudo macho approach to Christian apologetics you see in people like Wilson, Dyer, and Shamoon is tiresome. It tries to
I
bully
agree.
people into accepting their view because their view can't win in a calm and collected exchange of ideas that is free of aggressive debate tricks. Finally, I want to clear up some points on how I engage with critics and what I choose to debate. My goal with the Council of Trent is to help as many people as possible who are the furthest away from Jesus Christ. So that's why I focus on debating the major theological and moral issues of our time. I have no interest in debating people on things like profanity and apologetics, flat earth theory, or unfounded conspiracy theories about the Jews. 2 Timothy 2:23 says, "Have nothing to do with stupid, senseless controversies. You know that they breed quarrels." This is also why I'm not interested in doing debates on young earth creationism, or whether St. Joseph was a widower before he was betrothed to Mary. Christians are free to accept or reject.
I also think that's a stupid idea. Some people do have that idea to explain Jesus's brothers and sisters, right? Because if Mary was a perpetual virgin, where did those brothers and sisters come from? So Joseph had previous kids from a dead wife, and then Mary was his second wife.
Reject those positions. So I'm not interested in debating people on those topics. Now, I am willing to dialogue with certain people on finer points of disagreement, if they are amenable to dialogue. But my profane critics have shown that they lack the maturity to engage in those kinds of conversations. And so to sit down with them would contradict this old piece of advice.
Calling him immature.
Never wrestle with a pig. You get dirty, and besides, the pig likes it. Also, just because I mentioned someone in an episode, that doesn't mean I'm going to send a script for them to review. I send scripts to make sure I don't misunderstand a complex argument or belief system. However, if someone's error or misbehavior is patently obvious, I'm just going to comment on the error. Plus, if they have a track record of immaturity or an inability to even perceive reality beyond their rhetoric, then I have no reason to expect a good faith reply from them, so I'm not going to waste my time seeking one. Finally, I hope that if you are interested in apologetics, you will not act like these people, and instead emulate truly mature, modern defenders of the faith, be it Christian apologists like William Lane Craig or John Lennox, or Catholic intellectuals like Scott Hahn and Ed Feser.
I don't know who those guys are, but I have seen William Lane Craig get dunked on by Bart Ehrman repeatedly. It is unfortunate.
The latter of whom can throw rhetorical punches.
I mean, it's not
while still
unfortunate. It's
retaining
unfortunate
a
for
gentlemanly
him.
Disposition. Instead of seeing ourselves as apologists first, we should see ourselves first as ambassadors, those who diplomatically represent Christ to other people.
That's
Part of
true.
being an ambassador involves standing up for the sovereign you represent, but doing so in a diplomatic way, because we're literally diplomats on behalf of the ultimate sovereign. 2 Corinthians 5:20 says this, "So we are ambassadors for Christ, God making his appeal through us. We beseech you on behalf of Christ, be reconciled to God." If you'd like to learn more about this topic, I recommend Father Gregory Pine's new book, Training the Tongue.
I would not. And I am going to be done for the day. So I need to go to bed.